really want to get into the Bob Lazar
Yeah, that's a fun one.
situation.
Bob Lazar, Area 51.
Now, when I see this guy talk, I tried to watch this podcast with him. I tried to
Jared.
watch the documentary first.
hmm
I mean, from a film perspective, it was just
The documentary.
I don't want to be. I know a lot of people subscribe to it, so I don't want to belittle them or dismiss their beliefs. But the documentary was just so poorly made. It was just so strange and bizarre. I couldn't get into it. And I'm looking into the Bob Lazar podcast. Lazar, and well, a lot of stuff doesn't really add up.
Yeah.
And so the claims he makes are really fascinating. You want to believe it. Like one of his claims, for example, he goes, they use for propulsion. He claims, first of all, that they had 12 or 13 alien spacecrafts, and he was one of the engineers working on them at the time. And he claims that they were there to reverse engineer the technology. Correct me if I'm wrong on
That's
anything.
true. That's what he says.
And then he claims that the propulsion was fueled by an atomic element 115, which he explained generates a gravitational wave. Now, was there not a molecule 115 discovered since?
Yeah.
So that
an element.
That's compelling, right? To be like, oh, I was
It's-
working on this, but
it
now
sounds,
they discovered
it. sounds compelling.
Yeah, it
until
sounds
you
compelling.
understand the history of chemistry
Mhm.
as being a continuous process of filling in the periodic table.
Mm.
Like all of the elements, they have an atomic number, which is the number of protons in the nucleus.
Mhm.
So you start out with number 1, which is hydrogen, which has 1, and then helium has 2, and then oxygen has 4. I might be wrong, but so you just get more and more. And the ones that with a low number are very stable, especially when they're in molecular forms. But higher up, they become more and more unstable. So they're very, very hard. You don't find them in nature, basically. So all the ones that are high up on the table, they had to synthesize. They had to actually create them by using some kind of radiation method. And as you got further and further along, they get harder and harder to synthesize. So when Bob Lazar suggested element 115 with 115 protons in the nucleus, they just hadn't got to it yet.
Yeah.
But it was one of the ones that was the next one along. I think they were up to about 111 or 112. There, they skip them occasionally because the odd ones are harder or something like that. But it's something that was inevitably going to be synthesized at some point. And when it was synthesized, it was found to be very, very unstable. Like it would immediately just go poof, like in milliseconds, really, like half a second was its half-life, and it would just vanish. But Bob Lazar claims that he took a pound of it home with him. And it's this stuff that wouldn't exist in a form that you
Probably
can take a pound of it home with you.
To hold in your person,
You
too.
couldn't have it. I mean, it's basically saying...
It would probably tear apart your cells.
Yeah, because it's disintegrating so rapidly. If you had a lot of it would create a lot of heat and probably radiation.
Yeah.
So it's not something you want to have around you.
Right.
But it's not something you can have in solid form.
Yeah.
So he hasn't been vindicated. No one's come up with solid 115. We've just come up with a way to synthesize what we knew was actually there, like this element.
Well, of course, we don't have alien technology. They would be able to stabilize it.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you introduce something like alien technology as the explanation, that's like saying, "Oh, but we have magic.
Yeah.
We can do anything." So that explains everything.
So I want to ask you kind of like a meta point about him. Joe had him on his podcast to 7.6 million views. The reception to that was extraordinarily positive. Do you think that it's irresponsible for Joe to have someone like that on his podcast, or how do you view something like that?
I don't think it's causing any great harm. Joe's was a big fan. He's a big UFO guy, and he really likes the story, and he believes Bob Lazar, it seems. So he's just promoting a story he thinks to be true.
Is that a gateway to the rabbit hole?
I don't really know. Like if the UFO thing is a gateway to the rabbit hole, people who get into UFO stuff, they tend to just stay in UFO stuff because it's so fun. Like the idea that there might be aliens out there. It's just this really amazing thing, and it supersedes everything else. You don't even get
You don't
too
find a
much overlap.
correlation between unhealthy conspiratorial thinking and people who generally are into the UFO.
There's probably some overlap.
Sure.
That you go from one to the other, but a lot of the people I talk to in say 9/11, they'll say that I investigate UFOs because I'm trying to discredit the 9/11 truth movement. They view UFOlogy as being this ridiculous thing that no one should look at. And then the people who
The
are
truthers.
yeah, the truthers think that.
Huh.
Then the UFO people, they all think that the truthers are completely crazy, and that I shouldn't be
Okay.
putting them in the same boat as truthers.
Interesting.
So I can't win there.
Huh.
Normally, you get a gradation where one is more extreme than the other, but here you've got kind of two
Camps.
non-overlapping areas.
There's also conspiracy shaming.
Conspiracy shaming.
Yeah, my conspiracy is better than your
Oh, that's
conspiracy.
funny. His claims are pretty extraordinary. I mean, I'd love for it to be true. It sounds fantastic. Like he says that he lived or he worked in a facility just outside Area 51. They had caves, basically dug into the side of a mountain. He worked on flying saucers. He worked on the specific one called the sports model, which was manufactured out of a metallic substance similar in appearance and touch to stainless steel, but apparently had some other property to it than that, right?
Well, the,
Stainless steel, that doesn't sound like fantastic.
yeah, well, I don't know. You'd obviously have to have some kind of weird. The thing about the things that he's suggesting is it's some way of bending gravity,
propel.
bending space time essentially, which is the same thing as gravity.
Which is popular, in sci-fi. And,
oh yeah,
and
exactly. It's
not a new concept, certainly.
no, and it would have been something he would have been aware of when he wrote these things. I think essentially he made it all up.
Do you think that he
So
has drank his own
crazy.
Kool-Aid, or do you think he's kind of just doing a social experiment?
I think it probably started out just him having fun, making stuff up, but over
He's made
time,
a life out of it.
I think he might even have been telling the same thing so long that he kind of believes that something happened.
Right.
Because it goes into so much detail.
Yeah, but it's telling the same story over and over again. There's not really that much there. He's got a picture in his head of what he thinks these sources look like. You'll hear him talking about the same things over and over again. Like he had a hatch here, it had a honeycomb, it was had a half dome, and I did this. He's just telling you the same story. So he has a story down pat, and he's repeating it. But it doesn't add up. And there's other things as well. Like he claimed he went to, I think it was Harvard or Stanford.
That's my favorite thing. He claimed he went to both MIT and Caltech.
Oh, okay.
However, both schools have no record of him attending, which of course he claims that the government erased his academic record to discredit him.
And that
Perfect
should be
excuse.
just a big red
That's a
flag.
big red
there.
flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can't
Isn't that great?
attend two schools for many years and have no
There's no
record of it.
pictures. There's no
Also,
clubs.
Nobody
So
knew you.
why would
Who was
they
there?
erase everything you've done, but they'll let you go out there and
Go on
talk?
Joe Rogan and talk.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
Yeah, why didn't they go back and get their pound
Well, why
of,
not just kill him
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
the government is that
Basically,
nefarious?
Yeah.
Just throw him off the side of the flat earth.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Yeah, and I think like there's a theory kind of behind what he does, which is that he did actually have some classified information about secret stuff that was going on there. Not aliens, just he knew some stuff about something else that was happening there, some stuff they were testing, like some weapon, proton beam or something. And when he gave this crazy story out to people, the powers that be, thought it was better for him to keep giving out this crazy story rather than giving the truth of what's actually going on there. So they figured, like, as long as he's just saying this stuff, that's fine. We don't have to do anything.
So that's a deeper conspiracy that suggests that he's colluded with the government.
Yeah, it's not really a conspiracy. It's just they're leaving him alone
Oh, because he
to
sounds
do
a
it.
little
They're not.
cuckoo.
Yeah, because they don't want to have to take more drastic action.
I see.
But,
Yeah, I love the MIT Caltech story.
yeah, that seems so obvious to me.
It's like, how do you? Yeah,
Making that up.
Come
Because
on.
you would be able to check that stuff.
Just don't even lie about your education. Just say
Yeah.
I'm self-taught.
Yeah, which essentially he was. He was a smart guy. He's a smart guy.
Sure.
He does physics. He does chemistry. He runs a store where you can buy all kinds of weird chemicals. There's other weird stuff in his past, like he once installed a closed-circuit TV system in a brothel, and he got arrested for some kind of thing related to this brothel in Nevada. I
Oh
guess.
right, yeah, I read about that too. He was
Yeah.
he's associated with the brothel.
Yeah, but you
which
can't.
is fine.
You
you
can't,
know.
like, you can't
But
blame
he-
people for their mistakes in the past.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's weird stuff.
You
This
know,
is
it's a big
his actual
picture.
past, but he prefers people to look at this imaginary tenure at where MIT and Caltech.
He also claims that he read briefing documents describing the historical involvement with Earth
Yeah.
for the past 10,000 years by extraterrestrial beings called gray aliens. These aliens are from a planet orbiting the twin binary star system Zeta Reticuli. More like Zeta Ridiculous. Have you heard that before?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I imagine that's probably
Is it Zeta Reticuli or Reticuli?
it's RET.
Right.
Reticuli.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. So that's, I think that actually comes from an earlier UFO stories.
Hmm.
I'm not entirely sure, but I think it was Barney and Betty Hill with these famous UFO abductees, and they claimed that the aliens had talked to them, and they said they came from Zeta Reticuli. And so he would have heard this. And so he's picking up this same thing. It's
Sounds great.
it's something that would have been
So
going
specific.
around in UFO circles.
Yeah.
That this is the place where the gray aliens come from. So everyone get your story straight when you need to talk to people.
Right. Yeah.